Before the 2024 season started, it was announced that something borderline unthinkable was about to happen. Mookie Betts, a career outfielder turned sometime second baseman, would become the Dodgers' starting shortstop, despite him only playing a handful of innings there the prior season and never before in his professional career. There was a lot of skepticism surrounding the move, with many thinking that Betts wouldn't have the tool set to take the position head on. Now, after he managed to play there for only about a third of the season before sustaining a major injury and then moving back to the outfield/second base, seems like everything the naysayers said came to pass, right? I mean, his advanced numbers don't look good, with him posting tied for the fourth worst outs above average mark at the position at -5, despite many of those in front of him having played far more innings. But with that being said, there's much more to this performance than meets the eye, as we'll dig into in a minute. Overall, what am I trying to say? Was Mookie Betts actually a good shortstop? Was he a terrible one? Well, like most things in baseball, the answer is not a simple one. But when all is said and done, I hope I'll have been able to portray a more accurate view of his time at shortstop. But before we get into his time up the middle, let's talk first about his background as a defender, starting with his immense reputation in relation to OAA, or outs above average. Since the totals started being tabulated in 2016, Mookie has managed to post 56 OAA, a total that has him in the top 30 of active major league players. This included notable seasons from 2016 to 2018, where every single year he managed to post at least 12 outs above average, putting him among, if not making him outright, the best outfielder in the game at large. As he reached his late 20s into his early 30s, these numbers started to drop off a bit, as he would end up moving more solidly into the single-digit territory by 2022, when he tallied 5. It's here that I believe our first misconception starts to creep up, that the Dodgers moved a Gold Glove caliber outfielder to the infield starting in 2023 and continuing on into 2024. While I do understand that at one time he was a Gold Glove caliber fielder, and I don't mean to dismiss the impact of what he was able to provide the Red Sox back in the day, the truth is he hadn't been that guy for at least a few years by the time 2023 rolled around. In fact, he was actually ranked below average per OAA in his time in right when he played there in 2023. While he certainly managed to produce at the plate in a manner keeping with his Hall of Fame resume as he's gotten a bit older, inevitably his athleticism seems to have taken a bit of a hit, with his speed seeing a dramatic drop-off in accordance with his range. That's why I personally thought the Dodgers moving him for periods to second base last year was a pretty savvy move. While he wasn't going to be the greatest infielder, he could potentially clear the way for other guys with a little bit more speed and overall upside as far as defensive metrics go, guys like rookie James Outman. And he responded well overall, racking up just -1 outs above average at the Keystone. But it's here that our story takes a bit of a turn, right? Because the Dodgers weren't content with him just playing second base while filling in the outfield occasionally. No, they wanted him to make the full transition to everyday shortstop. Did they get greedy, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? Did he flop so drastically this year that this move can only be seen in retrospect as an outright moronic misstep? Not so fast. While yes, his time at short this year was oftentimes hard to watch, it wasn't for all the reasons you might think. But before we get into how his performance up the middle was at times sneaky good, let's address two elephants in the room. One, yes, his arm was very poor, with his average arm strength of just 78 miles per hour ranking in the 15th percentile. Two, his overall numbers don't look good, and I'm not here to claim that they objectively are, but they also might not be quite as bad as they seem on the surface. When you examine the breakdown of his 2024 performance, something immediately stands out. This number right here, -5 OAA going towards first base. That's right, in every other category he ranges from slightly below average to actually solidly above average. Take away these plays up the center of the diamond and he's actually a decent major league shortstop. Now, why is that? My theory is this: there's no play that can easily replicate the motion of going up the middle as a shortstop. It's the most unique angle you're going to face as an infielder on the baseball field. Think about it. If you go to your right at second, you don't have to make a very strong throw to get the runner since you're so close to the base. And if you're going up the middle, you can make an off-balance toss on a hop to first with, again, plenty of time to beat the runner coming down the line. What's more, going to the hole at shortstop isn't extremely dissimilar from backhanding a ball as an outfielder, which he definitely had plenty of experience with. It's not that big of a jump to simply plant and toss versus setting your feet and throwing. But what is a major jump is not spinning around and throwing like an outfielder would on a ball to his right, and instead having to try to angle yourself in alignment with the base before many times firing off target to your first baseman, who, if you don't set up correctly, can oftentimes be receiving a ball with the spin the equivalent of a sinker, darting down and away on a hop. This leads me to another huge factor which addresses a prior concern. He didn't seem to have a lot of confidence in his arm. Remember how I said that his velocity is near the bottom of the league? Well, if you go back to just 2023, his velocity on average was 88.1 miles per hour. Pretty solid. And his max of 97.2 tallied in the outfield was a completely respectable mark. So it's not like he doesn't have objectively impressive arm strength, especially for a guy of his stature. It's simply that he wasn't using it, at least partially for the reasons I just gave. Imagine trying to balance all the physical pieces required to range towards the second base bag while trying to unleash a hard throw to first. It's just really tough. That also might explain why he was more comfortable going into the hole, where he'd feel a sense of familiarity akin to throwing up the middle as a second baseman. Sure, it's a tougher play relative to that, but it's not wholly dissimilar. This is why I think that if the Dodgers were to try to move Mookie Betts back to shortstop, this would need to be his main area of focus. getting comfortable being agile to his right. If he could manage to do so, even to a reasonably below average level, I think he could become at least a passable defensive shortstop. But even as things stood before he ended up getting injured, I still think he did a decent job for somebody who had never really played the position before, and a much better job than people will ever give him credit for.